What's up, YouTube? We got the greatest MVP race of our time by JimmyHighRoller. Something new on this channel. I'm not usually someone to make reaction content, but I just want to try something new on this channel, and JimmyHighRoller makes really good videos. So let's get straight into this video. We pretty much have a two-man race in the MVP conversation right now between SGA and Nikola Jokic. I expect... judging by the thumbnail of this video, I think it's he's just going to be talking about Jokic and SGA, how crazy of a race this has been. But without further ado, let's get straight into it.
We are now just a few weeks away from the end of the 2025 NBA regular season. And by this point, the MVP race is usually all but wrapped up. But what do you do when there's two MVPs? History says you vote for the guy who is leading his team to the most wins of any team in a decade while putting up prime Michael Jordan numbers. Very clearly the best player on the best team, which should make this decision pretty obvious. Except it's not, because history has never seen a season like the one Nikola Jokic is having. It's better than this one, and this one, and this one. In fact, it is possibly the most impactful season anyone has ever had.
Bro, Nikola Jokic could be a four-time MVP, and I believe he's only 30. He can be a four-time MVP at 30 years old. That is fucking wild. This guy's on... I just want to throw that out there that I think he's having one of the greatest peaks in NBA history. I mean, I think he'd be a four-time MVP in what, like in a 9-year span? I think he's in his like 9th season, maybe 10th season now. That'd just be crazy. I mean, not to mention, he was a second-round pick, got drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. Like, this guy's already the greatest second-round pick of all time.
All-time great campaigns and only one trophy. It is the greatest MVP race in recent history, and it has left voters completely torn, questioning what it even means to be the NBA's most valuable player.
I believe in ads coming up.
Today's video is sponsored by DraftKings.
There we go.
The most compelling case someone can make to be the most valuable player in the league is to put up the best numbers in the league. This isn't the only ingredient to the MVP recipe, but it's a big one. And right now, Jokic and Shea aren't just having the two best seasons in the NBA, they're having two of the best seasons of all time. Just looking at some simple box score numbers, Nikola Jokic jumps off the screen like the obvious favorite. A near 30-point triple-double on nearly the best efficiency in the entire league, and the first player to ever be top 3 in points, rebounds, and assists. Numbers that make Shea's season look a bit pedestrian.
Just looking at these numbers, obviously Shea's going to win the scoring title. He's leading his team to, I think at the moment they have like 62 wins, first in the league, first in the West, obviously. I would probably give the edge to Shea just because, I mean, he's leading a team to... They're probably going to get 70 wins. I mean, I just don't know what else he would have to do. I mean, the reason Luka didn't get it last year was because of team record. I believe the Mavs were like the 4th or 5th seed. But Shea has that, putting up similar stats to Luka last season. Having one of the best, offensive seasons of all time. And he's leading his team to likely, like I said, going to be 70 wins. But Nikola Jokic is Nikola Jokic. Like, if they give it to Jokic, I'm not mad at it at all. I think this is a very close race. Like, if they gave it to Jokic, like I said, I would not be mad at all. Like, these are some ridiculous numbers.
Despite being
Jokic is one of the greatest players I've ever seen.
5 and 6 on at least 60% true shooting is a stat line that has only been achieved by 3 other players in the history of the NBA. Michael Jordan, James Harden, and Luka Doncic across 5 different seasons. Although none of them were as efficient from the floor as Shea is this season. However, box score numbers by themselves have never been quite enough to compel voters. Of these 5 previous seasons, only one
Bro,
of them...
look at James Harden. Like, I don't think this gets talked about enough. Like, James Harden, I believe, does he have 1 or 2 MVPs? I think I could be wrong. I think Harden may have 1. I think Giannis took 1 from him, right? I believe he's a one-time MVP, but like, dude, look at these numbers. Like, we took Harden for granted. Harden was ridiculous.
Ended up winning the MVP, Michael Jordan in '88. And to pull it off, he had to also be the best defensive player in the league. In the case of Jokic, there's only been one season in modern NBA history that compares to his, Russell Westbrook in 2017. And that season, he was the runaway MVP, receiving 69 of the total 101 first-place votes. The glaring difference between these two seasons? the mile-wide gap in their efficiency. Nearly a decade and some of the most absurd statistical seasons.
Westbrook shot 42% on an MVP season. That's kind of crazy.
Doesn't warrant a runaway victory for the award. It may not even win it. But these numbers hardly even scratch the surface of the impact and value these two provide every game. If we take a deeper look into some of their more advanced numbers, we can see just how remarkable Shai and Jokic have been this season and why the MVP race is as close as it is. To put into perspective the caliber of season these two are having, LeBron at his absolute statistical peak had a box plus minus of 13.24. Steph Curry at his absolute best had a BPM of 11.94. This season, Jokic has a box plus minus of 13.21 and Shai is at 11.58. Choosing between Jokic and SGA this season is like picking between 09 LeBron and 2016 Steph. Good luck. For the last half decade, Jokic has led the league in just about every advanced metric by about a mile.
Crazy.
But this season, Shai has threatened Jokic's spot and even dethroned him at times as the best player in the league. A feat that, in and of itself, is probably the most impressive thing he's done all season. On any given night, either one of them can look like the most impactful player on the planet. And even looking at advanced numbers, the edge is only slightly in Jokic's favor. Crafted NBA has Jokic as the best player in the NBA this season, with Shai right behind him, and then a really big gap, and then everyone else.
That's crazy.
Plus minus, on the other hand, has Shai as the best player in the league this season, with Jokic right behind him, and then huge gap, everyone else. A quick glance at any of these catch-all statistics will tell you that Jokic and SGA are both historically and almost equally as dominant this season. Fortunately for those who are put to the difficult task of choosing between Jokic and SGA for MVP, these numbers have never been a direct indication of who will or who should win the award. Over the last 2 decades, the best or most impactful player in the NBA in any given season, according to some of the best advanced metrics, ended up winning the MVP award only about half of the time. Many times, these are cases where the individual numbers were backed with regular season team success. But rarely have the numbers alone, regardless of how great they were, been enough to be crowned the most valuable player in the league. In fact, if putting up the best stats automatically made a player the MVP, voting for the award wouldn't even be necessary. So in terms of sheer individual numbers, there isn't a very compelling case to be made in either direction. Jokic's numbers are better, but without more context, their dominance from game to game is virtually the same. So we need to add more context. How are these?
I do want to give a shout out to Jokic though, because there's something that he's kind of leaving out. Is I found this stat to be very interesting. Nikola Jokic has never played with an all-star. Like, you could say Jamal Murray is like an all-star caliber player. Obviously, when it comes to the playoffs, he's an all-star caliber player. He always turns it up a notch. But Nikola Jokic has never played with another all-star. Like, that is crazy. Obviously, J-Dub was an all-star for Shai this year. And I think if Chet didn't get hurt, he also would have been an all-star. I think that helps Jokic's case even more. JimmyHighRoller, maybe he brings it up later on in the video, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Performances impacting their team, and to what extent does their historic production lead their team to success? In most cases, when two players are having incredible seasons, the tiebreaker in the eyes of fans and voters comes down to how well their team is playing. The second ingredient to the MVP recipe: win and win often. 25 of the last 30 MVPs went to players who clinched either the first or second seed in their conference. And right now, the Thunder aren't just winning more games than the Nuggets. They are the 4th highest winning team in modern NBA history. But recently, team success has held less weight in the MVP discussion than it has in the past. 3 of the last 4 MVPs going to players outside of the top 2 seeds. Nikola Jokic being just the 2nd player in over 40 years to win the MVP, despite his team not even cracking 50 wins in a full season back in 2021. As if the voters have made the decision that the MVP isn't limited to simply the best player on the best team, but rather the player who has the largest impact on a winning team. And right now, there is one player in basketball who is impacting the game far more than anyone else. Here are the current top 8 leaders in the MVP race: Jokic, Shai, Giannis, Tatum, Mitchell, Curry, Mobley, and LeBron. And here are the net ratings of each of their teams. Shea has put on a masterclass all season, leading the Thunder to be not just the most dominant team this season, but the second most dominant regular season team in NBA history in terms of net rating. And for many people, the overwhelming team success the Thunder have had this season is enough to push Shea into the lead for the MVP. But value isn't just when your team wins. It is how much your team depends on you to win. If we look at each team's net rating when their MVP candidate is on the floor, it is clear that the Thunder are easily the best team in the league when Shea is on the court, with an absurd net rating of plus 18.3. This means that when Shea is on the floor, the Thunder are nearly 20 points better than their opponents per 100 possessions.
That's insane.
Followed by the Cavs with Mobley, the Cavs with Mitchell, and the Nuggets with Jokic. But the most revealing measure is the difference a player makes for their team when they're on the court versus when they're off the court, where Nikola Jokic jumps out as by far the most valuable and important player to his team in the entire league. His presence...
Negative 8.2 when he's not on the court, whereas Thunder are still plus 5.8. That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that. But shout out to Evan Mobley right here. Little side comment in the video. Defensive Player of the Year should not go to Draymond. Should easily go to Evan Mobley in my opinion. But let's get back to it.
The difference between the Nuggets being a net negative 8.2 points.
Shout out to my guy Jason Tatum too.
In the NBA and a plus 10.6. One of the best teams in the NBA. For many of these MVP candidates, their team can still compete at a high level.
Wait, hold on. This just caught me off guard. So the Cavs are better statistically without Donovan Mitchell? That's pretty crazy.
Like the Celtics without Tatum, the Cavs without Mitchell or without Mobley, the Lakers without LeBron, and the Thunder without Shea. Steph and Giannis are the only other MVP candidates who...
Oh, let me move the face cam so you guys can see. One sec. This is what I was talking about right here. I'm going to put the face cam back, but right here, Donovan Mitchell. 12.3 to 13. Thought it was pretty interesting. I don't know.
Their teams from below average to title.
Pretty interesting that statistically they're better without Mitchell.
The Nuggets are nearly the worst team in the league. Now, it's worth considering who these players play around when they're on the floor. A rotation that tends to keep starters together is bound to favor those in that starting lineup compared to a rotation that pulls and plugs periodically. For example, if Jokic tends to play with starters more often than not, but SGA is constantly playing with rotational players, Jokic's numbers are going to appear better.
Nuggets bench is so ass.
Alongside a better group. And so I looked into this. How many possessions these MVP candidates have played this season, and how many of those possessions were exclusively with the starting lineup. And it turns out that Nikola Jokic does have the benefit of playing with the best players on the Nuggets more than any of these other candidates play with theirs. 17% of all of his minutes on the court coming alongside the Nuggets starters.
In Jokic's defense, he has the worst bench on here by far. Like, I know my face cam's kind of blocking it, but one second. 17.3. In Jokic's defense, he has the worst bench on here. Like, the Thunder have one of the best benches in the league. I guess, like, you notice the two top guys on here is Jokic and Giannis. Like, these two have the worst benches on here. Obviously, Tatum, pretty good bench. Cavs have probably the best bench in the league. Warriors bench is pretty good. Lakers bench is all right. I mean, got to give context to the stats.
9% of the time. But in most cases, this number is negligible. For example, Giannis plays with the Bucks starters virtually as much as Jokic plays with his. And at most, the difference in time these players see on the court with their best unit varies by less than 10% of their total playing time. In other words, it doesn't really matter who Jokic is playing around. He rises the tides for his entire team significantly more than anyone else in the entire league. In fact, according to Cleaning the Glass, when you translate these on-off splits to an estimation of impact on Denver's record, the Nuggets are a staggering 45 wins better as a team when Jokic is on the floor versus when he isn't. For comparison, Shea's on-court impact on the Thunder projects to them being about 15 wins better as a team. But this is where the discussion becomes a matter of what you value most in your most valuable player. Because while Jokic elevates the Nuggets to one of the best teams in the league, Shai elevates the Thunder to being one of the best teams of all time. Is it more valuable to drag your team from being bad to being in title contention? Or is it more valuable to elevate your team from title hopefuls to overwhelming title favorites? This is essentially what the MVP race is boiling down to. A player with ungodly numbers propelling his team to compete at a level they have no business being at, or a historically great scoring juggernaut who is the sole leader of the best team in recent history. And the answer to this question may boil down to a third and final ingredient to the MVP award, a factor that is often ultimately decided who has won in the past and will more than likely be the deciding factor this season.
Aura? Oh, a storyline. Okay.
In ESPN's most recent MVP straw poll, 100 members of the media were asked to cast their vote on who they thought was the MVP of the 2025 NBA season. The results? Within the top 5, Donovan Mitchell received 0 first-place votes. So did Tatum, and so did Giannis.
Tatum deserves some votes.
30, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander received 70 of the 100 first-place votes. So far, the media has spoken, and they think Shai is this season's most valuable player. But in more recent surveys asking players, NBA executives, and NBA analysts, out of the 25 votes that were casted, 18 were in favor of Jokic, and only 7 voted for Shai. Which brings us to our third ingredient in the MVP. Narratives. Beyond what you do on the court, the story has to be in your favor as well. And at the moment, every narrative is beaming directly at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to become this season's most valuable player. First and foremost, he is the best player on the best team, a formula that has led to more MVPs than any other. While Jokic is fighting the uphill battle of voter fatigue, Shai is ripe to receive his first MVP. He's not just having a great season, he's having an all-time great individual season. He plays both sides of the ball. He is the leader of the NBA's brightest young team, and in a league that's been searching for a fresh face, Shai is front and center. SGA has what I consider to be the perfect MVP resume this season. He checks every single box for what you would want in your most valuable player. He has the marquee performances, he has the momentum, he has the caliber, and of course, he's never won it before. But narratives can also lead us astray. They can allow our emotions to dictate how we perceive what we are actually seeing. And that's where precedence gives us points to reference in search for the most fair and accurate conclusion. It allows us to not be prisoners of the moment, but instead consider the history of the game and the unwritten rules we've abided by up to this point. Precedence tells us that no matter how great a player is, winning 4 MVPs before making it to the finals even twice is completely unheard of, even for the greatest players to ever play. For this same reason, voter fatigue is a frustrating...
Nikola Jokic is an all-time great
if the MVP
already.
award purely went to the most valuable player in the league every season, Michael Jordan and LeBron would each be sitting on about 8 of them right now. Instead, the award sort of blends from one season to the next, taking in the context of everything that came before it and the consequences of it. Decades ago, MVP voters decided that the award was not reserved for the best player or even the player having the best season. Instead, it was an award that had multiple ingredients, multiple boxes that needed to be checked off. But even by their own criteria, what qualified a player to be the MVP was changing all the time. If it was simply the player having the best season, Michael Jordan would have won it about 8 times. If it was the best player on the best team, Michael Jordan would have won it about 8 times. But instead, he has 5, which has essentially set a firm benchmark on how voters vote for the foreseeable future. Voters messed up by not rewarding MJ with the number of MVPs he rightfully earned, and so every player that came after him is held to the same arbitrary, convoluted standard. As one fan put it, sports writers regret not giving Jordan all the MVPs and now punish everyone after that like it's a Supreme Court case and not just something they could change at any time. A case of we do it this way because we've always done it this way. The MVP award should be given to the most valuable player in the league, but it's not quite that simple, and it never has been. To make the argument that Jokic deserves the MVP because he is objectively having the best season in basketball right now would be the most logical conclusion. But it would also be ignoring the 78 years of history, tradition, and expectations.
That's a good point.
Based on the responses to this discussion so far, it appears that now more than ever, the players and the people involved in the NBA from game to game view the award as a reflection of simply who is the best, most impactful player. And the media looks at it through the lens more of story and narrative. And in the end, it is the media who gets to vote. With less than a month left in the regular season, the race for the MVP only seems to be getting tighter with each game. And in what is shaping up to be the greatest MVP battle we have ever seen, voters will have to either stay the course and vote for a player that has built a near perfect MVP case, or make a rare exception to a player that is quite possibly having the most impactful individual season in modern NBA history.
Man, that was a good video. Shout out to JimmyHighRoller. What do you guys think about this? Who is your guys' MVP? Like I said, I think I would give the slight edge to Shai. I think Shai is leading, like I said, the best team in the league. He's the best player on the best team in the league. Gonna win 70 wins. Could likely be an All-NBA defender as well. Maybe an All-NBA second-team defense. But I mean, I would just give the slight edge to Shai. I love Nikola Jokic, one of my favorite non-Celtic players in the league. I wouldn't be upset if they gave it to Shai. Like I said, one of the closest races in a really long time. But like I said, I would give the slight edge to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shout out to Shai having one of the greatest guard seasons of all time. And shout out to Nikola Jokic having just one of the best seasons of all time. But yeah, let me know who your guys' MVP is down below. Let me know if you guys like this, reaction content. I could drop some more reaction videos. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.